15 years ago, I was a North Korean border guard stationed along the Tumen River. For 10 years, I wore that uniform and stood watch at the border. My mission was clear: stop anyone trying to abandon the motherland and cross into China. I caught dozens of defectors with my own hands. I heard their desperate pleas. I saw the fear in their eyes, and I turned them away. That was my duty. That's what I believed. But one night in June 2008, I crossed that very border myself. I took off my uniform, waded into the Tumen River, and became the very thing I had spent a decade preventing. Did I betray my country? No. I simply made the only choice a human being could make. I chose my family. Today, I want to tell you my story. The story of how a border guard became a border crosser and why. Before we begin, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Your support helps us share more stories from North Korean defectors and keeps these important voices heard. It was spring of 1998. I was 27 years old when they assigned me to the border guard unit in Onsong County, North Hamgyong Province. The Tumen River stretched out before me, the borderline between North Korea and China clearly visible. Standing there for the first time, I felt my chest swell with pride. I was on the front lines, protecting the motherland. I believed every word they told us. Those who tried to cross the border were traitors, and stopping them was our sacred duty. My platoon leader addressed me on my first day. Comrade Kang Min-chul, this border is our republic's lifeline. The enemy constantly tries to lure our people away from the motherland. Our mission is to catch every single traitor before they cross. I understand, sir. I responded with conviction. Those first few years were relatively quiet. Daytime patrols along the border, night shifts at the guard post. Occasionally we'd catch smugglers, but actual defection attempts were rare. Then came winter of 2000. That's when everything changed. That night, the temperature dropped below -20 degrees Celsius. Around 11 p.m., during my patrol, I heard movement near the river. I shined my flashlight and saw a middle-aged man crossing the frozen river. "Stop! Don't move!" At my shout, he froze, then started running again. I jumped onto the ice and chased him. He kept slipping and falling on the ice. Eventually, I caught him. "Comrade, why are you doing this? Why betray the motherland?" He grabbed my hands, his voice breaking. "Please, comrade, please let me go. My children are starving to death at home. I need to get to China, find work, earn money, please." I shook my head. "I can't. This is treason against the motherland." I brought him to the guard post and reported him. He was handed over to the State Security Department. Later, I heard he was sent to a labor camp. At the time, I thought I'd done my duty faithfully, but that night, I couldn't get his desperate eyes out of my mind. By 2003, they said the arduous march was over, but the people's lives hadn't improved. If anything, things got worse. The village near our post had stopped receiving food rations long ago. People stripped bark from trees and boiled grass roots to survive. Every patrol, I saw bodies collapsed on the roadside. At first I thought they were resting, but when I got closer, many were already dead. One afternoon, an elderly woman was stumbling past our checkpoint. She was skeletal, barely able to walk. Suddenly, she collapsed right there. I ran to help her up. "Grandmother, are you all right?" "Water, just a sip of water," she whispered. I rushed to the guard post and brought back water. She drank with trembling hands, then squeezed my hand tightly. "Thank you, young man. People like you. I hope you survive this place." I didn't understand what she meant then, but there was something in her eyes, a deep sadness, a message she wanted to convey. In 2004, I got married. My wife Sun-hee worked at a nearby collective farm. She was honest and hardworking. The next year, our daughter Un-byul was born. Holding that tiny baby for the first time, I felt my chest tighten with emotion. For this child, I thought, I'll work even harder at my duty. But reality was harsh. Military rations came irregularly. My wife's farm distribution was nowhere near enough. She returned to work shortly after giving birth, unable to properly recover. As Yunbiol grew, she was smaller and weaker than other children. We couldn't give her proper nutrition. My wife barely ate, saving her food for Yunbiol. Watching my wife sacrifice like that broke my heart. But I was powerless to help. Fall of 2005. Yunbiol got seriously ill, high fever, unable to eat. We took her to the hospital, but the doctor just shook his head. Severe malnutrition. She needs nutritious food. What kind of food? Meat, soup, eggs, milk. But finding those things. He trailed off. We all knew the reality. Those things were nearly impossible to find, even at the market. And if you did find them, the prices were astronomical. I agonized day and night. Somehow, I had to earn money. Some of my fellow guards accepted bribes from smugglers, looking the other way. But I couldn't do that. I knew once you crossed that line, there was no going back. Then, one day, I caught another defection attempt. A woman in her mid-30s. During interrogation, she broke down crying. "Comrade, I have a daughter too. She's 7 years old. She's sick, lying in bed, and I can't find medicine anywhere. I have relatives in China who can help. That's why 7 years old. The same age as my Yunbiol. I couldn't look at her face. I understand your situation, comrade. But this is against the law. The law? Does the law save my daughter? Does the motherland give my daughter medicine?" Her voice mixed anger and despair. I had no response. She too was handed over to the State Security Department. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words kept echoing in my mind. Does the law save my daughter? For the first time, I asked myself, what am I really protecting here? Is it truly the motherland, or just a system? 2006 arrived. Yunbiol's health improved slightly, but she never fully recovered. Then my wife, Soon Hee, collapsed. Overwork and malnutrition had broken her body. The hospital said she needed to be admitted, but we couldn't afford it. Besides, the hospital barely had any medicine. My wife stayed home, bedridden. Her complexion grew paler by the day. Her cough worsened. Yunbiol stayed by her sick mother's side, bringing water with her tiny hands, crying, "Daddy, Mommy's sick. Please make Mommy better." Standing before my daughter's desperate plea, I was just a powerless father. I requested leave from my superior but was denied. Border security had tightened. They couldn't spare anyone. I was exhausted, working at the post during the day, coming home to care for my sick wife at night, feeding Yunbiol, putting her to bed. I slept maybe 3 or 4 hours a day. Then, summer 2007 brought another incident that shook my world. A young man was caught attempting to defect. During interrogation, he spoke calmly. "I went to university. I love my country. But in this nation, no matter how hard you work, you can't feed your family." His eyes were clear. He looked straight at me and asked, "Comrade, does your family eat well? When they're sick, can they go to the hospital and get treatment? Are your children growing up healthy?" I couldn't answer. "You know what this place is like, comrade. You're lucky enough to wear that uniform, but your family, isn't it the same in the end?" Even as the state security agents dragged him away, his eyes pierced straight through to my soul. From that night on, I had nightmares. All the people I'd caught appeared in my dreams. They reached out their hands toward me, asking, "Why did you stop us? We just wanted to live." I'd wake up drenched in cold sweat. Now, looking back, that was the turning point in my life. The moment when everything I'd believed, without question, began to crumble. But I didn't know then. I couldn't imagine that 3 years later I would cross that border myself, that I would walk away from the border I'd protected for 10 years. 2006 arrived. Eunbiol's health seemed to improve slightly, but she never fully recovered. Then my wife Soon-hee collapsed. Overwork combined with malnutrition, her body simply gave out. The hospital said she needed to be admitted for treatment, but we couldn't afford the fees. And even if we could, the hospital barely had any medicine. Soon-hee stayed home in bed. Day by day, her complexion grew paler. Her cough worsened. Little Eunbiol stayed by her sick mother's side, bringing water with her tiny hands, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, Mommy's sick. Please make Mommy better." Standing before my daughter's desperate plea, I was nothing but a powerless father. I requested leave from my commanding officer, but he denied it. Border security had been intensified. They couldn't spare anyone, he said. I was being ground down, working at the guard post during the day, coming home to care for my sick wife at night, feeding Eunbiol, putting her to bed. I was getting maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Then came summer 2007, and another incident that would shake my world. We caught a young man attempting to defect. During interrogation, he spoke matter-of-factly. "I went to university. I love my country. But in this nation, no matter how hard you work, you cannot feed your family." His eyes were unwavering. He looked straight at me and asked, "Comrade, does your family eat well? When they're sick, can you take them to the hospital for treatment? Are your children growing up healthy?" I had no answer. He continued with a bitter smile. "You know what this place is like, comrade. You're lucky enough to wear that uniform. But in the end, isn't your family in the same situation?" Even as the state security agents dragged him away, his gaze never left me, piercing straight through to my soul. From that night on, nightmares plagued me. The faces of everyone I'd caught appeared in my dreams. They reached out their hands toward me, asking, "Why did you stop us? We just wanted to live." I'd wake up, soaked in cold sweat. Fall 2007. New orders came down from headquarters, tightened surveillance on defection attempts, and imposed stricter punishments on anyone caught. A few days later, we caught a family trying to escape a couple with their 10-year-old son. The child cowered behind his parents, trembling with fear. The father dropped to his knees, begging, "Please, just the child. The child didn't know anything. Please." But regulations were clear. The entire family had to be handed over to state security. Watching that child being dragged away, screaming and crying, I felt like a monster. After that day, whenever I looked in the mirror, I saw a stranger. Was that person in the uniform really me? Was this the version of the motherland I wanted to protect? Early 2008. Soon-hee's condition deteriorated rapidly. When she coughed, blood came up. They suspected tuberculosis, but we couldn't even get a proper examination. I tried everything to find medicine. I scoured the markets, begged everyone I knew. I even tried approaching Chinese smugglers a few times, but my position made everyone refuse to deal with me. One cold February night, Soon-hee took my hand and whispered, "Honey, I'm sorry. Being a burden to you and Eunbiol." "Don't say that. You're not a burden." "Eunbiol. Please take care of Eunbiol. Please." Tears streamed down her face. I held her tight. "Don't give up. We'll get through this together." But words alone couldn't overcome reality. Reality was merciless. One day in March, a fellow guard cautiously approached me during patrol. "Min-chul, I heard your wife is seriously ill." "Yes. They say in China, you can get medicine easily." I shot him a sharp look. He glanced around and lowered his voice. "You know it too, don't you? In this country, no matter how hard you struggle, it's useless. I'm actually thinking about it too. Someday. He couldn't finish. I said nothing in response. But that night, his words wouldn't leave my mind. April came. Now Unbiol started running a fever again. It seemed she'd caught whatever Sun He had. Our home now held 2 sick people and 1 powerless father. One dawn, Unbiol thrashed with fever, murmuring in her delirium, "Mommy, I'm hungry. Please give me food." She was talking in her sleep, but that small voice tore my heart apart. I looked out the window. In the distance, I could see the Tumen River, the border I'd protected for 10 years, the river where I'd stopped so many people from escaping. But now, that river began to look different to me. Not a prison wall, but perhaps a passage to life. One May night, I made my decision. This couldn't continue. I couldn't just sit and watch my family die. Everything I'd believed in my entire life came crashing down in that moment. But simultaneously, something new was born inside me. The instinct of a father, a husband, the need to protect my family. It struck me more powerfully than any loyalty to the motherland. I began preparing to defect. Ironically, as someone who'd guarded the border for 10 years, I knew the optimal escape routes better than anyone. My colleagues' patrol patterns, the times when surveillance was weakest, the depth of the river, the condition of the ice, every detail was precisely mapped in my mind. Early June, I cautiously made contact with ethnic Koreans on the Chinese side. After several dangerous attempts, I found someone willing to help on the other side. The agreed date was dawn on June 15th. Until then, I worked my shifts as normal. No one could suspect anything. I didn't tell even my family until the last moment in case I failed. For 10 years, I'd protected my country's border. Now I was about to cross it. Was I becoming a traitor? No. I simply wanted to live as a human being. I wanted to protect my family. If that was a crime, I was ready to bear it. June 14th evening. I came home and had dinner with my family. The table was bare, hardly any side dishes. But that night, I put out everything we had. "Daddy, why so much food today?" Unbiol asked. I stroked her hair. Today feels like a special day. After dinner, I put Unbiol to bed, singing her a lullaby. She fell asleep peacefully in my arms. I memorized that warmth, that soft breathing, carved it into my heart. Soon he seemed to sense I was hiding something. "Honey, is something wrong?" "It's nothing. You and Unbiol are so precious to me." I held my wife close. This could be the last time. I didn't know if I'd succeed or fail. 11 p.m. I put on my uniform and headed to the guard post. Just another night shift. My colleagues suspected nothing. Past midnight, 2 a.m. arrived. My patrol time. I grabbed my flashlight and radio and left the post. Walking toward the river, that path I'd walked countless times over 10 years, felt strangely unfamiliar tonight. With each step, my heart pounded like crazy. Cold sweat dripped from my palms. But I couldn't stop. I paused and looked back. The dim light of the guard post glowed in the distance. There lay my entire life of the past decade. The passion of my youth, my pride, my belief in and loyalty to the motherland. But now I had something more precious. A reason to live. A family to protect. I reached the riverbank. June, but the night air was cold. The dark water flowed before me. I surveyed the area. I knew my colleagues' patrol patterns perfectly. This was the safest time. About 30 minutes until the next patrol. I began removing my uniform. That uniform I'd worn for 10 years. Everything it represented. My hands trembled. Even unbuttoning was difficult. This wasn't simply removing clothes. It was shedding my identity, my past. I folded the uniform and hid it in the rocks along the riverbank. Inside, I left a letter. To my comrades, I have chosen to become a traitor. But I am not betraying the motherland. I am simply choosing my family. Someday, I hope the day comes when people in this land can also make choices. Kang Min-chul. Writing that letter, tears came. Was this really the right choice? Was I really becoming a cowardly traitor? But then I saw Unbiol's face in my mind. My sick wife's image appeared. I wiped my tears and stood up. I stepped into the river. The icy water wrapped around my entire body. Even in June, the river was freezing cold. I began crossing slowly. The water rose to my waist. The current was strong. Each step forward was difficult. With every step, the past 10 years flooded back. Winter 2000, that middle-aged man I'd caught. My children are starving to death at home. That woman, does the law save my daughter? That young man, we just wanted to live. Their voices, their faces, came back one by one. Now I understood. They weren't criminals. They were just people struggling to survive. People exactly like me. The water reached my neck. Breathing became difficult. My foot slipped. I almost fell, but I couldn't stop. About halfway across, I looked back. North Korean soil was receding into the distance. Somewhere over there, my wife and daughter still waited. I made a promise to myself. I would succeed. I would bring them over. This couldn't end in failure. That's when it happened. Suddenly, flashlight beams appeared in the distance. The patrol. They'd come earlier than scheduled. My heart stopped. If they caught me, everything was over. I submerged myself in the water, holding my breath. The flashlight beams swept across the river, just 10 meters from where I hid. If they'd come any closer, I would have been discovered. I held my breath. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Time felt eternal. The freezing water numbed my entire body. Finally, the flashlight beams disappeared. The patrol had passed. I lifted my head above water and gasped for air. My whole body shook. From fear or from cold, I couldn't tell. But I couldn't stop. I pushed forward again. The water grew shallower. The opposite bank was approaching. 10 meters, 5 meters. Finally, my hand touched the Chinese riverbank. I desperately clawed my way up the embankment. Covered in mud, I pulled myself onto land. Chinese soil. The contact was waiting. Seeing me, he extended his hand. Hurry. We need to move now. I took his hand and tried to stand, but my knees gave out. I collapsed again. 10 years of pent-up emotion, 10 years of suppressed fear, it all erupted at once. I sat there on the ground and wept openly. It's okay now. You made it. The man patted my shoulder. But I knew. This was only the beginning. The real hardship was just starting. Until I brought my family over, until we reached safety, I could never rest easy. Dawn was breaking. The eastern sky began turning red. A new day was beginning. A new chapter of my life was unfolding. I stood and looked back at North Korean soil one last time. I'll come back for you, soon Hyunbyul. Just wait a little longer. Then I turned and walked toward the Chinese side. Turning my back on the border I'd protected for 10 years, I headed into the unknown world. Border guard Kang Min-chul died that night, and Defector Kang Min-chul was born. I slipped into an ethnic Korean village on the Chinese side. The man who'd agreed to help was Mr. Kim, a Korean Chinese man in his 60s. He hid me in his storage shed. Stay here for a few days without moving. There will be searches from the North Korean side. I crouched in the darkness of the shed. It was cramped and stifling, but I wasn't in a position to complain. For the first 3 days, I didn't step outside once. Mr. Kim brought me food and water once a day. He spoke cautiously. The other side of the river is in chaos. Word's out that a border guard defected. Security's been tightened. Don't go outside under any circumstances. I nodded. Guilt washed over me. My colleagues were suffering because of me. I worried whether my family might face consequences too. Mr. Kim seemed to read my thoughts. Don't worry. Your family will be investigated, as if they knew nothing. They'll assume you escaped alone. A week passed. Mr. Kim said, You need to start moving soon. Staying here is too dangerous. I was an illegal resident in China. If caught by police, I'd be immediately deported back to North Korea. I hid during the day and only came out at night to work. I did manual labor at construction sites. Having to hide my identity, I earned less than half what Chinese workers made. I worked 12-hour days for barely any money. But I didn't complain. This money would get my family out. I endured, saving every penny. Every night, thoughts of my family kept me awake. Was Soon-hee okay? Was Yoon-biol healthy? What kind of investigation did they face after I disappeared? 3 months passed. One day, Mr. Kim asked carefully, Do you want to get your family out? Of course. But how? I know a broker. It costs a lot, but it's safe. How much? About 3 million won per person. For 3 people, nearly 9 million won. 9 million won. At my current earnings, that would take 2 years. Will 2 years work? Mr. Kim shook his head. Waiting that long is too risky. Surveillance on your family will intensify. You need to move fast. Then what? You can pay a down payment and pay back the rest later, but there's interest. I agonized, but I had no choice. Let's do it. From that day, I worked like a madman. Not 12 hours, 15, 16 hours a day. I cut back on food. 1 meal a day was enough. In 6 months, I'd saved the down payment. I met the broker. He spoke coldly. You have the money? Yes, here. Give me the family information. Names, ages, location. With trembling hands, I wrote it down. When can this happen? Fast. Maybe a month. Slow. 3 months. We need to be careful. Please, keep them safe. Don't worry. I've been doing this a long time. The waiting began. Every single day was torture. I lived in anxiety, waiting for contact. 2 months passed. One night, the broker called. Tomorrow night, your family crosses the river. Be ready. My heart nearly exploded. Finally, I'd see my family again. The next night, I went to the meeting place. The riverbank. The very river I'd crossed a year ago. Past midnight, I heard movement in the darkness. The broker appeared with 3 people. It was Soon-hee. It was Yoon-biol. Soon-hee! Yoon-biol! I ran and embraced my family. The 3 of us held each other and cried for a long time. Honey, you're alive. Mommy, Daddy, how much I'd missed them, how much I'd worried. No words were needed. Soon-hee had lost so much weight. Yoon-biol was even thinner than before. But they were alive. We were together. It's okay now. We'll never be separated again. We went to Mr. Kim's house. For the first time, our family spent the night together. Yoon-biol fell asleep in my arms. Soon-hee held my hand tightly. But we couldn't relax. This was still China. We could be caught by police at any moment. The broker said, Now you need to get to South Korea. Staying here is dangerous. How do we go? 2 routes, one through Mongolia, the other through Southeast Asia. Which is safer? Both are risky. But the Southeast Asia route is slightly safer. Takes longer and costs more, though. Cost was an issue. I was already deep in debt, but my family's safety came first. We'll go through Southeast Asia. Good. We leave in a week. That week was preparation time. I taught Unbiol some Chinese, just in case. Soon-hee still coughed. I got her medicine, but she wasn't fully recovered. Still, she looked better than before. A week later, we were loaded into a truck headed south. Hidden in the cargo hold, we traveled for 2 days. Cramped and suffocating, but we endured. We crossed the border into Southeast Asia. I wasn't sure which country exactly. The broker controlled everything. There, we waited another month, preparation time to reach the South Korean embassy. Finally, the day came. The broker said, "Early tomorrow morning, go to the embassy. Apply for defector status there." Is it really safe? Once you're inside the embassy, you're safe, but getting there is dangerous. Don't get caught by local police. The next morning before dawn, we took a taxi, 30 minutes, to the South Korean embassy. A tense 30 minutes. Every time a police car passed outside the window, my heart pounded. Finally, we arrived at the embassy, but there was a problem. A police officer stood at the entrance. "What do we do?" Soon-hee asked, her voice trembling. I squeezed Unbiol's hand tightly. "It's okay. Let's walk in confidently together." Hand in hand, the three of us walked toward the embassy door. The officer looked at us. My heart nearly stopped. But we didn't stop walking. We kept going. The embassy door drew closer. 10 meters, 5 meters. Finally, we reached the embassy entrance. I spoke to the guard. "We are North Korean defectors. Please help us." The guard nodded and opened the door. We entered the embassy. In that moment, Soon-hee collapsed, sobbing. Unbiol cried too. So did I. We'd done it. We'd finally reached safety. An embassy staff member approached. "You're safe now. You'll be able to go to South Korea soon." We spent the next month at the embassy. Identity verification and paperwork proceeded. Then finally, the day came. The day we boarded a flight to South Korea. The plane took off. Through the window, I saw clouds. Unbiol gazed outside with wonder. "Daddy, the clouds are so pretty." I stroked her hair. "That's right. Now we're flying through free skies." Hours later, the plane landed at Incheon Airport. The moment we stepped onto South Korean soil, my knees buckled. The long journey of 2 years was over. Now, our real new life was beginning. Chapter 5. Settling in South Korea, plus conclusion, 5,000 characters. From Incheon Airport, we boarded a government vehicle heading to Hanwon, the resettlement center where North Korean defectors receive education to adapt to South Korean society. Through the car window, the scenery unfolding before us left us speechless. Tall buildings, clean roads, countless cars, scenes we couldn't have imagined in North Korea. Unbiol's eyes sparkled. "Daddy, is this really where we're going to live?" "Yes, Unbiol. This is where we start our new life." We arrived at Hanwon. There were many other defector families there too, each person carrying their own story, arriving at this place. 3 months of education began. We learned about South Korean society, legal systems, economic structures, daily life, everything. At first, everything felt foreign and difficult. North and South Korea shared the same language, but they were completely different worlds. How to use ATMs, credit cards, smartphones. Things natural to South Koreans felt like alien technology to me. But we learned, step by step. We didn't give up. We had to survive here. Soon-hee received proper medical treatment at Hanwon. She began tuberculosis treatment, and within months, her cough improved dramatically. The doctor said, "If you'd come any later, it could have been dangerous. Fortunately, the treatment is working well now." Hearing those words, tears came. My decision to defect back then, it had been right. Unbiol's health returned too. With proper, nutritious food, color came back to her face. She smiled more often. After completing our 3-month education, we entered society. We moved into government-provided rental housing. A small 2-bedroom apartment, but to our family, it felt like a palace. Our first night in our own space. A warm room, clean water, stable electricity. Yoonbyul jumped around excitedly. "Daddy, Mommy, I love it here." Soon-hee looked around the kitchen. "Honey, this feels like a dream. Are we really allowed to live here?" "Yes, this is our home now, a place where we can live with dignity." But reality wasn't easy. I needed to find work, earn money, pay back the debt to the broker. I submitted applications everywhere, but I was often rejected for being a defector. My education and experience weren't recognized in South Korean society. I struggled for a month. Despair crept in. We'd come so far, could we really not survive here too? But I couldn't give up. I had to endure for my family. Finally, I got a job at a small factory. They manufactured plastic products. The pay was modest, but I was grateful. Every morning I woke at 6 a.m. and went to work, home by 7 p.m. It was hard work, but I didn't complain. Compared to starving in North Korea, this was a blessing. Being able to work, earning fair wages, spending nights with my family, everything was precious. Eun-byul started school. At first, she struggled to adapt. Her speech patterns were different from South Korean kids. The culture was different. She came home crying a few times after being teased. Each time, I held her and said, "Eun-byul, it's hard at first, but you're a strong girl. Our daughter who made it all the way here from North Korea, you can overcome this." Gradually, Eun-byul adapted. She made friends. Her grades improved. One day she came home from school, excited. "Daddy, today in class we talked about our dreams. I said, I want to be a doctor." "A doctor? Why?" "When I was sick in North Korea, there was no medicine. I want to become a doctor and treat sick people, especially people from North Korea." Hearing those words, my eyes grew hot. Our daughter was growing up so wonderfully. Soon he recovered and started part-time work. She worked a register at a small shop. Not much money, but our whole family worked together and got by. In the evenings, the 3 of us gathered around the dinner table. The side dishes weren't fancy, but just being together made us happy. Eun-byul talked about school. Soon he shared stories from the shop, and I told them about my day at the factory. An ordinary routine, but to me, this ordinary life was a miracle. 2 years passed. My diligence at the factory earned me a permanent position. My wages increased. I paid off the debt to the broker completely. Soon-hee fully recovered her health. Eun-byul became a middle schooler. Her grades were excellent, and she had many friends. One Sunday afternoon, we went on an outing to Han River Park. We spread a mat on the green grass and sat down. Yoon-byul played with her friends. Soon-hee leaned against my shoulder. "Honey, I'm happy." "Me too. Sometimes it feels like a dream. I can't believe we're really here." I squeezed Soon-hee's hand. "It's not a dream. This is reality, the reality we created." In the distance, the Han River sparkled. Looking at that water, the Tumen River suddenly came to mind. That river I'd guarded for 10 years, and the river I crossed one night. Did I become a traitor then? No, I simply made a human choice. What is a motherland? Simply the land where you were born? No. A motherland is a place where people can live with dignity, where you can protect your family, dream dreams, and plan for the future. In that sense, this place, the Republic of Korea, is my true motherland. Even now, many people in North Korea live through the suffering I experienced. Perhaps right now, someone is standing guard at the border, agonizing, just as I once did. I want to tell them, you are not alone. I understand your struggle, and someday I hope you find the courage to choose. Life comes only once. We have the right to live this precious life meaningfully. I am no longer border guard Kang Min-chul. I am now free man Kang Min-chul. A father who loves his daughter, a husband who cherishes his wife, and an ordinary person who works diligently every day. That is the life I wanted. Today, I live with gratitude. When I wake in the morning, my family is beside me. I can eat meals. I can walk the streets freely. Yesterday, Eunbyul told me, "Daddy," my teacher said, "our country is one of the wealthiest in the world. Do you like this country, Daddy?" I answered, "It's more than liking it, Eunbyul. This country gave Daddy life. It let me truly live." That night I crossed the Tumen River wasn't just crossing a border. It was a passage from despair to hope, from oppression to freedom, from death to life. A man who guarded the border for 10 years ultimately crossed it. I have no regrets. It was the best choice I could make. And now, in this free place, I am living as a true human being. Thank you for listening to this long story. I hope this story becomes hope for someone, courage for someone. Freedom is not free. Sometimes you must risk everything to attain it, but it is worth it. Today, I live enjoying that freedom, and I am grateful.